Living in the wide open spaces of Texas has its perks: fresh air, endless skies, and the satisfying solitude of owning land far from prying eyes. For me, the best part of my ranch wasn't just the sprawling fields or the cozy cabin. It was the pool I built myself, a sparkling retreat tucked behind a grove of oak trees. It was my little slice of heaven, equipped with solar heating, a state-of-the-art filtration system, and most importantly, a smart lock to keep it private. My ranch has been in the family for generations, and until recently it was peaceful. Then came the HOA. The HOA wasn't supposed to have any jurisdiction over my land. My property was grandfathered out when the community bylaws were drawn up decades ago. But that didn't stop them from trying. First, it was the notices in the mail: your fence is not up to HOA standards. Then came the fines for unauthorized landscaping when I installed a new windmill. I ignored them all. Legally, I had no obligation to comply. But ignoring the HOA was like poking a hornet's nest. The president, Susan, a self-proclaimed queen of the neighborhood, took it personally. Her teenage son Tyler was no better. He seemed to think the entire area was his playground, riding his dirt bike across my fields and leaving trash near the creek. I confronted him more than once, but his response was always the same smug smirk. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the horizon in shades of orange and purple, I heard the familiar buzz of Tyler's dirt bike. He wasn't just near the edge of my property this time, he was heading straight for my pool. I jumped in my truck and drove toward the grove, arriving just in time to see him leaning against the fence around the pool. He was fiddling with the smart lock, his dirt bike parked haphazardly nearby. "What do you think you're doing?" I called out, my voice cutting through the still evening air. Tyler didn't even flinch. He turned to me, all teenage bravado, and said, "This isn't your pool. My mom says the HOA rules apply to everything in the neighborhood, including this." I let out a sharp laugh. "Your mom's wrong, kid. This land isn't part of the HOA, and you're trespassing." "Whatever," he muttered, pulling out his phone. I watched in disbelief as he dialed 911. "You're calling the cops on me? On my own land?" "Yeah," he said, grinning. "You've got an illegal lock on this pool. It's a safety hazard." The audacity of it stunned me into silence. Before I could respond, he was talking to the dispatcher, spinning some tale about a community pool being locked in violation of HOA regulations. I leaned against the hood of my truck, arms crossed, as the absurdity of the situation unfolded. It wasn't long before the sound of approaching sirens broke the stillness. Tyler looked triumphant, as if he'd won some kind of victory. I just smiled, knowing the storm he was about to unleash on himself. Ask ChatGPT. The sheriff's cruiser pulled up in a cloud of dust, its red and blue lights cutting through the twilight. Tyler, still puffed up with smug confidence, waved the officer over like he was about to get a medal for Citizen of the Year. "Officer," he called out, practically jogging to the cruiser. "This guy locked up the community pool with some weird high-tech lock. It's dangerous for the kids around here." Sheriff Daniel stepped out, his wide-brimmed hat casting a shadow over his stern face. He'd been in these parts long enough to recognize every face and every piece of land. His sharp eyes scanned the scene, landing first on Tyler, then on me, and finally on the pool. "Evenin', Sheriff," I greeted, tipping my hat. "Looks like we've got a bit of a misunderstanding here." Daniels gave a slow nod, his gaze shifting back to Tyler. "Son, what's your name?" "Tyler," the boy replied confidently. "My mom's the HOA president. She said this pool is supposed to be open to the community." Daniels let out a low chuckle, glancing at me. "That's so." "Sure is," I said, fighting the urge to smirk. "Except this pool isn't part of the HOA. It's on my private property, which means your mom's got no say over it." Tyler's bravado wavered, but he pressed on. "Well, she said the HOA rules apply to all properties in the neighborhood. And this lock? It's illegal. People could drown if they can't get in to save someone." Daniels raised an eyebrow. "Illegal, huh? Mind if I take a look?" "Be my guest," I replied, unlocking the smart lock with a quick tap on my phone. The gate swung open, revealing the pristine pool beyond. Daniels stepped closer, inspecting the setup. "Looks up to code to me. Proper fencing, clear signage, secure access. Seems safer than most pools I've seen." Tyler's confidence crumbled further. But my mom said." "Your mom's wrong," Daniels interrupted, his voice firm. "And you're trespassing, kid. This ain't your property and you've got no right to be here." Tyler's face turned red, but before he could respond, Daniels turned back to me. "You want to press charges, or should I just give him a warning?" I paused, considering my options. I didn't want to escalate things unnecessarily, but I also wasn't about to let Tyler, or his mother, think they could keep pushing me around. Let's hold off on charges for now, I said. But I'd like an official report filed. This isn't the first time he's trespassed, and I want a record in case it happens again. Daniels nodded. Fair enough. As the sheriff began taking notes, I noticed Tyler pulling out his phone again, his fingers flying across the screen. He wasn't dialing this time, he was texting. My gut told me trouble was brewing. Within minutes, another car roared up the driveway. Susan herself emerged, her signature power walk on full display. She was dressed to intimidate in her tailored blazer and oversized sunglasses, despite the setting sun. What's going on here? She demanded, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. Daniel straightened up. Evening, ma'am. Your son was caught trespassing on Mr. Carter's property. We were just about to wrap things up. Susan's face turned a shade darker. This isn't his property. This pool belongs to the community, and it's my job as HOA president to ensure everyone follows the rules. It is my property, I interjected calmly. Got the deed and survey maps to prove it? Would you like to see? Susan faltered for a moment but quickly recovered. That won't be necessary. The HOA's jurisdiction does not extend to my land, I cut her off, my patience wearing thin. Your son's already wasted enough of the sheriff's time tonight. Now, unless you'd like to be cited for trespassing too, I suggest you leave. Susan's lips tightened, but before she could respond, Daniel stepped in. Ma'am, I'd listen to him if I were you. The law's pretty clear on this. Her face twisted with frustration, but she finally turned to Tyler. Let's go. We'll handle this later. As they drove off, I couldn't shake the feeling that Susan wasn't done. The HOAs don't give up that easily, especially not Susan. And sure enough, as I locked the gate behind me, I noticed something glinting in the grass, a small black device. A closer look revealed it was a trail camera. It wasn't mine. The game had just changed. You said. The trail camera wasn't my brand, but it was high quality, top of the line, likely expensive. I turned it over in my hands, noting the scratches on its casing and the faint HOA logo on a sticker at the back. Susan had clearly stepped up her game, and I wasn't about to let her think I'd take this lying down. That night, I uploaded the footage from my own cameras which had caught Tyler sneaking around the pool, fiddling with the lock and finally placing the trail camera. He'd clearly been trying to monitor my pool for something, or set me up. If Susan wanted a fight, I'd give her one. The next morning, I visited the county records office. It was time to pull every document I could find about the HOA's boundaries, the legal status of my land, and the permits for my pool. The clerk, a helpful woman named Linda, handed over the files with a knowing smile. HOA troubles? She asked. Something like that, I replied, scanning the documents. They're trying to claim my property's part of their jurisdiction. Linda chuckled. They've tried that before with other landowners. Never works, but they sure love to waste people's time. With a thick folder of records in hand, I headed back to the ranch. It didn't take long to find the proof I needed. My property had been excluded from the HOA in perpetuity. The paperwork explicitly stated that the HOA had no authority over my land. Feeling emboldened, I decided it was time to secure my ranch even further. I installed more cameras, upgraded my smart lock system, and added a few sensors near the pool fence. But the real piece to resistance was the custom app one developed. It connected all the security features of the pool, cameras, sensors, and the smart lock, to my phone. If anyone came near the pool without authorization, I'd know instantly. Just as I finished the setup, my phone buzzed with a notification. Someone was tampering with the lock. I pulled up the live feed and wasn't surprised to see Tyler again, this time with a pair of bolt cutters in hand. He looked around nervously before cutting the chain and opening the gate. I hit a button on my phone, activating the siren. The blaring sound sent Tyler stumbling back in shock, dropping the bolt cutters. Before he could recover, I stepped out from behind the oak trees. Nice try, I called out, holding up my phone. You just triggered an alert and got yourself on camera. Again. Tyler's face turned pale, but before he could say anything, his mom's car screeched to a halt nearby. Susan jumped out, her face a storm of fury. What are you doing to my son? She demanded. Stopping him from breaking and entering, I replied coolly. You might want to teach him the meaning of private property. This isn't private property, she shot back. This pool is a community resource and your lock is illegal. I sighed, pulling out a copy of the legal documents I'd prepared. Here's proof that you're wrong. My land isn't part of the HOA. This pool isn't a community resource. And this lock is perfectly legal. Susan snatched the papers and skimmed through them, her expression shifting from anger to disbelief. That can't be right, she muttered. It is, I said firmly. Now you're trespassing. Again. And I have plenty of footage to back it up. I'm filing a restraining order against both of you. Susan's eyes narrowed. You're making a mistake. No, Susan, I replied with a smirk. You are. As they left, fuming and defeated, I knew I'd won the battle. But the war wasn't over yet. Later that night, I reviewed the footage again and noticed something new. Tyler wasn't just cutting the chain, he'd planted another device near the pool. I retrieved it the next morning and found it was another camera, this one set to record continuously. Susan and Tyler were up to something bigger than just trespassing. It was time to make sure they regretted ever messing with me. I spent the next few days collecting everything I had, footage, legal documents, and a detailed log of every HOA violation they'd committed. Then I reached out to a lawyer who specialized in property disputes. If Susan wanted a fight, she just declared war. And I had no intention of losing. You said. A week later, Susan received a court summons. My lawyer, a sharp-witted woman named Rebecca, had filed a lawsuit against both her and the HOA for harassment, trespassing, and defamation. It wasn't just about the pool anymore, it was about principle. While the legal gears began turning, I set the stage for a little community theater. I invited the neighbors to my ranch for a barbecue. Most of them had no love for the HOA, but Susan had always managed to keep her antics just under the radar. It was time for everyone to see her true colors. As the brisket smoked and the sun dipped low, I connected my phone to a projector. Folks, I began, raising a glass, I've got a little story to share. It's about boundaries, both legal and personal. I started with the footage of Tyler breaking into my pool and Susan's outlandish claims. The neighbors watched in stunned silence as the videos played, punctuated by my explanation of how Susan had been harassing me for months. Then I dropped the bombshell, the footage from the trail camera Tyler had planted. It didn't just show my property, it showed them sneaking around other neighbors' yards, likely trying to gather evidence for HOA infractions. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. One of the older neighbors, Mr. Jenkins, stood up. That's my fence they're messing with, he said, his voice shaking with anger. I told her it was up to code. By the end of the evening, Susan's reputation was in tatters. But I wasn't done yet. The court date finally arrived. Susan walked in with Tyler by her side, her usual arrogance replaced by a brittle, forced calm. Rebecca and I presented our case, the video evidence, the legal documents, and testimony from several neighbors who'd come forward with their own grievances. When it was Susan's turn, her defense was weak at best. She tried to argue that the HOA had implied jurisdiction over my land, but the judge quickly shut her down. This court recognizes the deed and survey maps provided by the plaintiff, the judge said, fixing Susan with a stern glare. The HOA has no authority over Mr. Carter's property, and your actions constitute harassment and trespassing. Susan's face fell as the judge ordered her to pay damages, cease all interference with my property, and step down as HOA president. But the best part came when the sheriff handed Tyler a citation for vandalism and trespassing. Watching his smugness evaporate was the cherry on top. As the gavel banged, I felt a wave of relief. Justice had been served and my land was mine again. But I wasn't content with just winning. Back at the ranch, I decided to put the pool to better use. I installed solar-powered lights, a shaded pavilion, and a sign at the entrance, private property, community pool day every Saturday. Entry fee, a smile and good manners. The neighbors loved it. What had once been a source of conflict became a hub of connection, laughter, and good times. Susan and Tyler? They moved away a few months later, their reign of HOA terror officially over. As I sat by the pool one warm evening, listening to the happy chatter of my neighbors, I couldn't help but smile. The ranch was peaceful again, not just because of the victory but because the land, and the people around it, had found harmony. And the next time someone messed with my property, they'd know better than to take on a Texan with the law and technology on his side. Ask ChatGPT.